You've done it before. Or maybe someone you love does it constantly. You're in the middle of a friendship, a conversation, a life, and then, suddenly, the line goes slack. You stop replying. You stop posting. You essentially vanish from the digital world for 2 weeks, a month, maybe longer. And then, just as suddenly, you reappear. You send a meme or a, "Hey, how are things?" as if no time has passed at all. To the person on the other end, it feels like a glitch in the matrix. They might feel hurt, confused, or even angry. They ask, "Where have you been?" And you don't really have a dramatic answer. You were just away. In a world that is obsessed with being always on, disappearing is seen as a red flag. Society labels it as flaky, antisocial, or even cold. But what if there's a deeper psychological reason for the disappearing act? What if your brain isn't broken, but is actually performing a very specific, protective function? Today, we are going to look into the psychology of the person who disappears. We're going to explore why going dark feels like the only way to survive, and why, for some of us, coming back like nothing happened isn't an insult to the friendship. It's a sign that we've finally found our peace again. For most people, a text message is just a text. But for you, it might be something much heavier. If you've ever found yourself analyzing a single message for 20 minutes or replaying a 3-minute conversation in your head for 3 days, you aren't overthinking. You are likely a deep processor. Science shows that some people have brains that literally process more information per interaction, more details, more subtleties, and more potential meanings. While others are just having a chat, you are playing social chess. You are reading micro-expressions, analyzing tone, and predicting outcomes 3 moves ahead. It's an exhausting way to live. This is compounded if you are one of the 15 to 20% of the population who are highly sensitive people, HSPs. You have more grey matter in areas of the brain linked to empathy and awareness. This means while everyone else is watching the world in standard definition, you are stuck in an ultra-high definition experience. Every interaction is a signal your emotional antenna picks up. Eventually, the antenna gets overloaded. The static becomes too loud. When you disappear for weeks, you aren't ignoring people. You are simply turning off the antenna because your brain is running out of storage space. You need that time to downshift from UHD back to a level of processing you can actually handle. There is a biological reason why you suddenly feel like you can't hit send. It's called the polyvagal theory, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges. Your nervous system has different modes. When you're feeling safe, you're in social engagement mode. You can talk, connect, and be present. But when you've been drained, when people have taken more than they've given, your brain doesn't wait for your permission to rest. It flips a switch. It moves you into the dorsal vagal response. In simple terms, this is a shutdown. It's a state of withdrawal and conservation. Your nervous system begins treating your energy like the finite resource it actually is. Think of it like a phone that hits 1% battery and automatically dims the screen and closes all the background apps to stay alive. That is what your brain does when you disappear. You aren't being mean by not replying. You are in power saver mode. You literally do not have the biological fuel required to engage in social engagement. And often, the relief you feel when you finally put the phone down is the sound of your nervous system finally exhaling. We also have to talk about the sheer math of friendship. Researcher Jeff Hall discovered that it takes roughly 200 hours of quality time to form a close friendship. If you are a person who craves quality over quantity, those 200 hours feel very heavy. You aren't interested in surface-level check-ins or small talk, which you likely find as exhausting as running a marathon. You want depth, but depth requires energy. When you look at your phone and see messages from 5 different people, your brain does a quick calculation. Do I have the 1,000 hours of emotional energy required to maintain these connections at the level they deserve? If the answer is no, the deeply selective mind often chooses to retreat rather than provide a shallow version of itself. You disappear because you're not willing to call someone a friend after just a few texts, but you also don't have the capacity to give them the deep dive they're asking for right now. So, you wait until you have the 200-hour energy back in your bank account. Not every disappearance is a deep emotional retreat. Sometimes it's much simpler. It's what psychologists call time blindness. If you're a certain kind of person, your brain is often running 17 tabs at once. You are deep in a project, a deadline, or a personal passion that demands every ounce of your attention. In this state, weeks can blur into days. Your calendar begins to look like abstract art. You see a message, you think, I'll reply to that in a minute, and then your brain opens tab number 18. Suddenly it's 14 days later. To you, it feels like you just saw the message yesterday. This is why you come back like nothing happened, because in your internal timeline, nothing did. You didn't file the message under ignore. You filed it under not urgent, right next to the dentist appointment you've rescheduled 4 times. You aren't avoiding the person. You're just lost in the flow of your own internal world. For some, disappearing is a response to learned helplessness. This concept, discovered by psychologist Martin Seligman, suggests that when we experience repeated disappointment with no control over the outcome, our brains eventually stop trying, not out of weakness, but out of efficiency. Maybe you were once the reliable one. You were the friend who picked up at 2 a.m., the one who absorbed everyone's problems like a sponge. But eventually, your dopamine system, the part of your brain that responds to rewards, noticed a prediction error. You expected connection and mutual support, but you got a gap between what you expected and what you received. Your brain did the math and decided that hoping hurts more than forgetting. Now, when you see a notification, your brain doesn't see an opportunity for joy. It sees a potential for another lopsided exchange. You disappear because your brain is trying to protect you from the anniversary effect of being let down again. The silence isn't apathy, it's armor. There is a word society uses for people who disappear: isolated or withdrawn. These words imply that something is missing, but there is a much better word for what you are actually doing: solitude. There is a massive difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the absence of a connection you want. Solitude is the presence of the peace you chose. If you are emotionally self-sufficient, you don't need constant external validation to feel okay. You don't need 30 people singing off-key to feel loved. You've figured out how to step off the hedonic treadmill, the cycle of chasing the next social hit or external celebration. When you disappear, you aren't sitting alone wishing someone would call. You are sitting in your space, finally able to hear yourself think. Your phone is quiet, and that quiet feels like relief, not rejection. You are running toward a version of yourself that doesn't exist in the chaos of constant connection. To you, disappearing for a few weeks is simply returning to your sanctuary. Finally, we have to look at the trust wounds. If you grew up in an environment where you had to read the room or scan faces to stay safe, your brain became incredibly good at pattern recognition. You aren't paranoid, you are discerning. You can sense when a friendship is becoming a drain before the other person even says a word. You've learned the rhythm of the love bomber or the conditional giver. Your nervous system learned that closeness comes with a cost. So, when things feel too close or too heavy, your blueprint for survival tells you to create distance. Your walls aren't there to keep everyone out. They are there to give you the space to decide who actually deserves access to your peace. When you disappear and come back, it's often because you were testing the waters of your own safety. You were waiting to see if the threat of emotional drain had passed so you could engage again on your own terms. The part that confuses people the most is the re-entry. You come back and you're perfectly pleasant. You don't offer a 10-page apology. This is because for the deeply selective mind, time doesn't erode the bond. Only betrayal does. If you were friends 2 weeks ago and nothing bad happened, you are still friends today. To you, the silence was a neutral event. It was just rest. You assume the other person knows you care about them because in your mind, depth is permanent. You don't need to perform friendship every day to make it real. Coming back like nothing happened is actually a compliment. It means you feel safe enough with that person to pick up right where you left off, without the social rituals and external noise that you find so draining. If you are the person who disappears, I want you to hear this. Nothing was ever wrong with you. You aren't cold. You aren't heartless. You are someone who learned the hard way that not everyone deserves access to your energy. You are someone who is wired for depth in a world that often rewards surface. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to let the world wait while you find yourself in the silence. If your circle is small, but it's full of people who actually see you, people who understand that your silence isn't a no, but not yet, then you aren't doing it wrong. You're doing it right. It is one of the quietly fiercest things a person can do to guard your energy and build a life that feels gentle instead of chaotic. So, here is your permission slip. You don't have to force connections that drain you. You don't have to apologize for needing the quiet. The right people, they'll be there when you get back. Protect your peace. Would you like me to create a set of flashcards to help you remember the key psychological terms like polyvagal theory and deep processing mentioned in this script?